Welcome, my fellow Nevadians. Today, I will be ranking each origin from worst to best. Besides a madness amount of spoilers, please keep in mind this is pretty much my personal opinion, rather than some expert ranking. So this is simply what origins I enjoy playing, more than some professional standpoint. To be frank, you can play any of these origins and have a fun time. Rankings are subjective, and I'd love to hear your origin ranking down in the comments. So, with that out of the way, let's hop right into the ranking. Last on the list is Noob. Now, I know a lot of people have Noob pretty high up on their lists, but for me, I just never really loved blank slate characters. Now, Noob is a totally excellent and valid option. Honestly, he could be better gameplay-wise than others on this list. His whole gimmick is, besides the wizard origin, he's the only one in the entirety of arena mode to have no weak skill or focus skill. This means, while yes, he doesn't get extra attribute points with his skills, nor does he have access to any of the 3 N tier specific focus skill tree abilities, he also doesn't have any heavy downsides and has access to all 3 core skills for each tree, meaning he and the wizard are the only origins to do this. This puts him as the literal jack of all trades, master of none character. So if you want a character to just play the game normally with, no weird gimmicks or downsides, Noob's your guy. But for me, I like wackiness, and Noob is too plain Jane for my personal tastes. What do I say about this crazy guy? Besides the massive doing everything better than he does? You see, the patient is the unarmed focus starting origin with an acrobatic weakness, which I personally believe is the worst weak skill to have in the game. But the issue I have with him is he has no supporting abilities or buffs that strengthen him even being an unarmed character, besides 2 things. The obvious of him having the unarmed focus skill, and he can resist dizziness by 30%. Wow, not really that great. Number 1, I don't really struggle with dizzy characters all that much with any character at all. And 2, unarmed in my opinion is the worst fighting type in the game, especially on late game stages like Nexus Facility. His unarmed endgame special skills help out a bit. Stunning Fist is great, since after a combo of 10, it can stun multiple enemies around you and lead to many executions. And you can even block against melee attacks like normal, with your bare hands. However, these are very late game skills, and even then, this only helps him out so much. You can always, after beating stages, buy weapons made for your hands. But again, these only help out a bit too, and they're locked until you keep completing stages. So what about his special? Well, the idea is really cool. He's supposed to spawn in an imaginary friend, an invincible ally that attacks enemies to get you out of trouble. Really sick idea, right? Well, good luck even getting him to help. More like an imaginary sadist. I mean, look at me! Looks like I can use his help! I only got 1 recording of the imaginary friend. 1! In the few hours I played this run for this video. This special is the patient's only unique part of him, and the fact that the one thing that makes him cool never even shows up just sucks. I hear varying ways of the imaginary friends spawning in, like getting beat up, yada yada, but I'm on my last corpus getting dished out on, and he's nowhere to be seen. Maybe you can argue that the imaginary friend is too overpowered to be used too much, so he has to be used in increments. Well, I say hogwash to that. That friend of his is the reason why anyone would probably pick this origin. My idea is that he obviously shows up more, but what if he had a higher chance to spawn in with the amount of corpus you have? So if you were full, he has a little chance to spawn in. But I think once you lose a corpus, he should 100% spawn in, even if it's just for like 30 seconds or so. Also, if you were on your last 2 corpus, especially your last one, he by default can randomly pop in at any time at a much higher rate, especially if your last corpus block is about to break. The patient to me is kind of just a waste. Unarmed isn't too good, and the patient has nothing to back up his skill focus. And his powerful friend almost never even shows up. So I'd recommend that the patient get some more unarmed buffs, along with having his friend show up way more than he does as of now. And I'm saying this because that's literally his gimmick, and his gimmick is almost never there. So for now, he stays at my bottom 2. Also, I do think Noob is better to play as. However, Patient is a bit more interesting, so I ranked him higher solely due to how cool in concept his special is. The lab rat himself, the Experiment. I'm gonna flat out say, this was not the Origin that needed an unarmed damage buff. That should have gone to the Patient. Now, his claws are really cool, and honestly, that's the most unique thing about this Origin. But this is an acrobatic Origin, and like with the Patient, this guy has no buffs or anything besides having the focus skill that helps him with being an acrobatic specialist. I know these are the starting Origins, but I believe they should be more catered for their specific focus skill. Maybe since he's an Experiment, give him a special pounce ability, or even extra movement speed or throwing damage buffs. His only weakness is he gets damage 25% more from fire, but that's really nothing. Fire isn't super common. The main threat of it will be the fire spouts in the Foundry and Murder Room, but those aren't too hard to avoid. Now, let's talk about his special, because his special sucks. It is by far the worst special in arena mode. When you do a gib or execute an enemy, sometimes your opponents may jump in fear as a reaction. However, with the Experiment, enemies that do this are supposed to run away in fear. When I first read this, I honestly thought it would involve either enemies killing themselves or running off stage. But no. Oh no, the best that'll happen is that they'll run or walk a bit backwards and then come right back to you like nothing happened. It's useless. Oh, and by the way, his imprint acrobatic counterpart, the Offering, literally has his special, making him even less unique. It'd be much cooler if they used either my idea earlier, or maybe the enemies run off and cower in fear for a few seconds, leaving them stunned and open for an execution. Or maybe he's even more unique that all the enemies that get stunned, he can do a chain reaction type thing, due to him being a weird lab experiment where he's able to chain react and execute multiple enemies at a time. That would make the Experiment much more brutal. He does have two really good acrobatic focus specific skills, such as the cool ability to leap over heads, and honestly, one of the best skills in the game, Lawnmower, where you spin any bladed weapon, allowing it to chop through multiple enemies, rather than just sticking in one. To be honest, I wouldn't personally mind this Origin getting a rework. He's just a tankier version of the Offering since he has 25 health, and he can do unarmed better since he has that +2 damage buff. I will also say I think ranged is the best weakness to have because guns are always useful even if you're stuck at core 2. But overall, he doesn't feel like a great acrobatic character, but he's still a reliable choice and can be pretty fun to play regardless of my issues with him. Number 8, the Mercenary. Here's where I start having less complaints about Origins. The Mercenary, in my opinion, is one of the best starting Origins to go with. But again, just like with all the other Origins below us so far, he has no benefits besides his focus skill helping him out with melee. Of course, the focus skill alone helps him out a ton, but I do think each Origin should have specific buffs to help them out with their skill tree. His weak skill is Unarmed, which I think is one of the best weaknesses in the game besides ranged. Sure, Unarmed gives you more strength and endurance, however, besides the improv skill, which allows you to use shards to execute people, you can definitely live without most of the Unarmed tree. Although, I don't think any weak skill makes sense for a Mercenary to be honest, especially Unarmed. Moving on to the Mercenary's buff, it's pretty simple. He gets a 10% cash increase earned from each wave, so that's cool I guess. It makes sense given his character. If you are a fan of squad mates, however, I would probably avoid this Origin since he has a debuff of lowering your max hiring level by 5. Meaning, if you fully max out the leveling upgrade machine, instead of your hirelings eventually getting to the max level, which is 30, they will always be 5 levels below, so in this case, locking them at 25. For his skill focus abilities, the two best ones by far are blocking and deflecting bullets back at the enemies, which can be extremely helpful. However, I'd like to remind y'all that these special skills are locked at the end of Core 3, meaning you don't get these until the late game Or if you're a grinder who just keeps on hogging all that XP, grinding the early stages. Good luck with that, by the way. Whew. The coolest part about him is his special ability, where if an opponent is stunned, you can hold shift, allowing you to use your own money to add them to your side. This works with any enemy that can be dizzied, except I think the cyber brutes for some reason. However, it does work on the other golems as far as I know, especially the golem MK2s, making this a very useful ability in the late stages of Nexus facility. So while I do think he should have some extra little buffs to cement him more as a melee character, he's still a great pick, especially for the starting origins. Speaking of origins that have buffs that actually cement their character's focus skill, here comes the Agent, my personal favorite pre-imprint class. And no, I'm not biased because I'm Agent Gabe, you silly little gray hot dogs. Menace Cup reference, by the way. The Agent has a focus skill of ranged, with a melee weakness. He's the only origin I never bother using melee weapons for, and instead I normally just use my guns and fists. He's also right now the only origin to have a melee weak skill. Now, this origin is centered more around pistols and revolvers rather than any other gun types. His buffs actually define his playstyle unlike the others. He gets an extra handgun mag, which is always helpful, and his non-auto rate of fire has an increase of 20%, meaning he can shoot faster. These two things alone are the little buffs I'm talking about that cement him as a ranged origin. Due to his range focus skill, he's much faster and more speedy than other characters. Therefore, his debuff that decreases max encumbrance by 35% makes perfect sense. He can't wear much armor, especially heavy armor. However, the Agent is much faster and can get a bigger attack bar due to his extra points with dexterity and tactics. His most useful endgame range special skill, for me anyways, was mobile accuracy, which allows you to move around without having your accuracy affected whatsoever. And precision shooter, which where enemies that dodge your shots take grazing damage instead of none, and the extra ability of your shots draining attack bars instantly, rather than them slowly draining, like normal. Now, let's talk about his special, because he technically has 3. 2 are really good, 1 is the second worst skill special, right above the experiments. Let's talk about the bad first. This skill allows you to start off each wave of an infiltration stage undetected, meaning for the first few enemies, you sneak up behind them and get an execution. So really all this does is allow you to get a couple free kills per wave before more enemies spawn in, or they just catch you regardless of how stealthy you are. Plus, let's not forget that there's only 2 missions in all of Arena Mode that this ability even applies to, which is Fast Track and Nexus Facility. It's not like you can set up traps or prepare for anything either, so this ability is worthless. I think something cool that could have replaced this ability could have either been a temporary invisibility special, once per wave, or via a cooldown where you can make yourself invisible to the enemies if you get surrounded, allowing you to get a better vantage point and gain your corpus block back. Or my other option is like Spy from TF2 with one of his watches, the Agent once per mission resurrects from death, dropping a fake body and allowing him invisibility for a few seconds, allowing him to move away from his killers. Anywho, let's talk about his actual useful specials. His pistols and revolvers stunlock enemies when hit. This can be super useful since stunlocking is always reserved for melee or unarmed attacks. The other one I believe goes through tack bars better when you unlock the sweet spot skill, which is great for later stages like hard sell and Nexus Facility. Overall, I think Agent is great and the best pre-imprint origin. Speaking of imprint origins, let's move on to, in my opinion, the lowest in the ranking of imprint origins. Kriber, oh Kriber. I hope I'm saying that right. It's Kriber. I'm just gonna say Kriber. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I'm always wrong. One of the weirdest origins in the game. Kriber is a melee-focused skill class with an acrobatic weakness, which for me, I believe, is the worst skill weakness to have. Having a skill weakness makes it harder to gain XP for that tree, and acrobatics is by far the most annoying tree to get points for. Also, he doesn't get the dodge roll, which is extremely helpful in general. So with all that said, why is Kriber so high up? Well, his main gimmick is cloning. Kriber has some of the lowest health in the game, having only 15 HP. He also can only ever have 1 corpus at a time, no matter how many core skills you upgrade. That alone sounds awful, right? Well, here's the catch. Your corpus blocks are instead replaced by an exact replica of you. They have the exact same armor and skills you do. With each corpus block, you get a new clone, meaning you can have 3 extra clones on the battlefield in total. These clones are very helpful, especially the more you level up your own character. Okay, great. But I only have 1 corpus, so clone or not, if I lose that corpus, I'm dead no matter what, right? Wrong! You see, these clones literally are your corpus blocks. If you die, as long as you have 1 clone left, you will transfer to that clone, playing as them instead. They do go away after each wave, however, and as far as I know, they just randomly spawn in whenever they feel like it. They even salute to you or high-five each other before dying when a wave ends. What great guys! His last difference is Kriber's 1 buff, which lessens your hireling's recovery time by -80%. Meaning, instead of the usual around 15-minute wait for a discount, that brings it all the way down to around 2 minutes. This all means you can have up to 8 squad mates in total, and that's not counting troopers as well. I think Kriber is super fun, but there are origins I just think are better. Fun fact though, as of now, Kriber was the last vanilla origin added into the game. I truly hope Giving Tree makes more though someday. The Halloween origin. The offering is everything the experiment should have been. He is literally an acrobatic incarnate. While he doesn't have any buffs or debuffs, he doesn't need any due to his specials. The offering is an acrobatic skill focus with an unarmed weakness, which I think is one of the better weak skills to have. Besides the Mag Turge, I don't even know if I said that right, he's the only other origin to have 10 base health, which is the lowest of the origins. Now, why is such a squishy pumpkin so high up on my list? Well, let me tell you why he's an acrobatic master. Number 1, his grenade slot throwables are able to pass through multiple enemies, meaning with a rock or throwing axe etc, you can get 2 or possibly more kills with 1 or 2 throwables rather than just hitting 1 enemy like normal. This only happens though if the enemy in front loses a corpus, so this works great on fodder enemies. Pretty much discount lawnmower. His next crazy special is the fact that he has lawnmower on every weapon once the skill is unlocked, rather than just the slashing ones. I will say, from my experience, slashing weapons still seem better to throw with lawnmower, but from what I can tell, it seems to work with any blunt weapon and even guns. He also has experiment special as well, making experiment's unique skill, well, not unique to him. But the next 2 specials he has are the coolest. Whenever you get a kill, there's a chance they'll come back as a little blue fodder ghost. These ghosts suck, but they can swing to do a little damage, possibly get a kill, and cause minor distractions. So it's not immensely useful, but it can be helpful. And regardless, it's still really cool. By far, the offering's most special is the fact he can literally heal himself, making him the only character in the entire game able to heal themselves without medkits. When the offering stuns someone, he has a unique execution where he absorbs their life force. This brings back 1 corpus each time. The fact that he can heal himself is crazy and makes up for his squishiness. Also, since he's an acrobatic origin, he'll have more endurance, meaning he'll be able to wear heavier armor. So yeah, this spooky pumpkin is one of the coolest origins in the game, and I love him. The psychopathic slasher villain origin. The Disquieted is the king of melee, and an absolute beast with it. Of course, he has a focus skill of melee, where he gets to deflect bullets and whatnot at the end. And even that special parry, where he attacks enemies back once parried with his melee weapon, dual wield only. He also has, in my opinion, the best weak skill in the game, as I've mentioned prior, which is ranged. This class comes with a 20% increase to slash damage, along with a negative damage decrease by 20% with range damage, showing that yes, this is truly the melee weapon origin. His specials are what really make him good though. While it can be a little wonky, his special ability of being able to teleport towards the enemy you're slashing towards can come in real good handy, especially against ranged units. This allows the Origin to get up close and personal much faster with his enemies compared to the normal dodge or run. Then there's my absolute favorite ability. Once you unlock improvised weapons, which is a very early unarmed skill, you can use any melee weapons to execute enemies with, like a shard. Yes, any. Don't listen to what the game tells you. You can use two-handed melee weapons as well. This is especially great on golems and larger enemies like Merc Gunners and Nexus supports. The Origin is also a bit beefier, coming with 25 health per corpus. Now, I never mentioned the outfits for the other Origins due to them mainly being starting spice. However, this Origin's mask is a very unique one. Unlike the other starting outfits, you can never buy this mask anywhere in any of the shops. It also can never come off no matter what, unless you're a dirty hacker. However, it gives you 5 armor with 0 encumbrance, so that alone is pretty good. Plus, it comes with a bunch of customization options as well. So overall, the Disquieted is the master of melee, and if you truly want to go melee only with a character, then the Disquieted is for sure your guy. One of the most beloved Origins, the gunsmith himself, the Tinkerer. Welcome to my top 3. Although, when you first play as him, he's more so the Stinkerer. The Tinkerer is the imprint range focus playstyle with an unarmed weakness. He has a base health of 20, so the average, and unlike Agent, he doesn't have too many buffs. He has a cool buff that gives you 1 extra magazine, and a not so troublesome buff of taking more hand-to-hand damage by 20%. There's not an absurd amount of enemies that don't use weapons, so this debuff isn't too bad. So why is the Tinkerer bad at first? Well, because he's just not good until you get the workbench after beating Contract 2. He has no special to help out besides that extra magazine buff, so in the beginning, he's just plain Jane, like the Noob, except he has a weak skill. However, once you do get the workbench, it's all over. Of course, you're limited to what you have, but there's an absurd amount of different options to choose from with him. I mean, look at this! However, the best part of him is the magazines he has access to. And best of all, you can pop these onto most weapons. Make an assault rifle dissonance gun, a laser submachine gun, an assault rocket launcher, a shotgun flamer, an acid blaster, a cold killer, whatever you want. The Tinkerer is an absolute overpowered blast as long as he has the ammo. I would like to point out though that his attachments are locked behind stages, so you have to unlock stages to unlock more attachments. It's fun to mess around with so many different choices to see what's the best weapon you can make. The Tinkerer is an absolute ball. However, there's 2 that I like better than him. So let's stop tinkering around and find out what my top 2 are. Every class-based system has to have a tank, and this is Madness Project Nexus's Heavy. The Massive is a beast and a much better patient. He's the imprint version of the unarmed skill focus and stays true to his name. How the Massive works is that with every core skill you buy that isn't your weakness skill, which is of course acrobatic, each core skill bought makes the Massive get bigger. He grows to the size of around a golem at max height, but keep in mind the bigger he gets, the slower he gets. All of his skills also can only be endurance and strength, so with only 1 tactic and dexterity, you better believe the Massive is so low and his tac bar sucks. To make up for that, the Massive in total can get 10 corpus. That's right, 10! This behemoth can wear tons of armor. My own Massive got an encumbrance of 43, which is quite a lot. He of course moves and turns slower, but this is solved with his charge-up punches. One is the half-max punch, zooming through the air, knocking down and possibly stunning those you hit, working on any enemy in your way. The next is okay. It's a jump, which is odd for this game, but if you can use it, go ahead, since it's the only jump in the game you have access to. Now onto his buffs and debuffs. He has the same buff as the Patient, where he has dizzy resistance, but it's increased from 30% to 50%. His debuffs can be pretty annoying. I'd recommend heavy big weapons for him once you get access to them, since he has a debuff that decreases his non-auto rate of fire by -50%. Buy guns that are automatic for him. His range accuracy also takes a hit with a -40% debuff. So he shoots slower, has worse aim, and he also reloads super slowly. However, guns can still work with him, and besides, fists or melee work wonders with the Massive. I love playing as the Massive. He's a durable big giant that can dish out and take tons of damage. For me, I had some of the most fun playing as him in arena mode, but there's one more that I think is better. One that took the place not by magic, but by wackiness. Feast your eyes upon number one. Number one and winner is the Turge. Don't know if I said that right. Look, I'll be honest, this origin is so wacky, he can have an entire video dedicated to him alone, and I mean that. So I'll go over the basics, but taking a deep dive into him will be too magical for this agent. To start, as I mentioned earlier, this origin has no weak skill or focus skill. However, once you get your first wand, I highly doubt you'll ever be touching another weapon outside of the magical stuff with this origin. The Turge, who I will now be calling the Wizard, because I can, gosh darn it, is the technical final origin of arena mode. The most expensive imprint, and the quotation marks ending to its story. This origin has no buffs. His 2 debuffs cement the fact that you should most likely stick to whatever the gambler sells you. Oh yeah, this origin literally comes with its own unique trader, a pocket dimension, a floating bed, a weapon bench for wands, and even a scope to see the maker himself. Anyway, his debuffs take away 2 extra magazines, and has an extremely harsh encumbrance debuff of -75%, meaning you mainly should probably only wear the armor sold by the gambler. Look, I'll be here all day talking about this guy, so let me get straight to it. He's a wizard, so you get magic, but it's in the form of wands. Each wand is different, but I feel like explaining everything will ruin the fun of you all figuring it out for yourselves. Each wand also reloads differently. They have infinite ammo, but each reload comes with a small price. For example, the bone meat wand gives you a bleed effect, while the plastic wand stuns you. Each one can have different mods put on them, however the most interesting portion is the various different gems, which are the different elements your wands can fire. From fire to toxic, ice, and more, wands replace gun combat with elemental damage instead. There are other tools such as the staff, which gives you access to some unique charge-ups, and the tomes that unleash a different magical spell with each one. I'll show you what one does, you crazy combat enthusiasts can see the rest when you play this epic game. His wizard armor is also a bit nuts since it drastically increases the amount of throwables you can carry. It can get up to 99. Yeah, 99 throwables. That's absurd. There's also rings you can get, but it's a shame since it should allow your punches to do elemental damage, but from what I've seen, it just gives them the unique death as if they were killed by the element, but doesn't add any extra elemental damage, so it's really, in my opinion, kind of dumb. You can even buy some of the robots' guns too, so that's kind of cool. Overall, due to its uniqueness and overall fun factor, the Wizard is by far, for me, the best origin in the game. He's super powerful, and unlike worrying about running out of ammo with the Tinkerer, you technically never can with the Turge. So due to how cool he is, how powerful he is, and just plain fun he is, the Turge is number 1 in my origin ranking. Thank you for watching my origin ranking video. Arena mode is truly a fun experience, and the origins really do just add tons of flavor to the already expansive mode. If you enjoyed this video and want more Madness Project Nexus content, click here. I've done a review on the game and a boss ranking, so feel free to check that out. I hope you all have an agent-tastic day. Stay safe out there, everyone. Peace out.